Hey everyone, exciting day today. We are going to do our first project on the Bolt. We're going to make a keychain. We're going to go through some of the things on Lightburn first and explain some of the ways we set these jobs up. And then we're going to move over to the machine and then really discuss on how to align things and how your placement will go, and also the processes you're going to go through on the controller to make everything happen. So let's go visit the computer screen and figure out how to get this set up so that we can cut, we can score, we can engrave. And then also, you may want to have on hand some type of material that you're going to want to cut through, whether it be cardboard to test out, or if it's just a piece of birch plywood or something like that. Today we're going to be working on some birch plywood. All right, so let's make something. We're in Lightburn, and one of the first things I'd love for you to do is go to the Help menu and go to Online Documentation. And here it's going to pull up the website. Sorry for the glitchy. And what we want to do is type in hotkeys. Now, you may not be used to using hotkeys, you may have never used hotkeys, but trust me, I hated them in the beginning, and I live by them now. Just scroll down to the very bottom and download this PDF sheet and print it out and have it next to your machine. This is going to help you with your editing of graphics and just moving around and copying, pasting, and stuff like that. Huge benefit and something that I had next to my machine for a very long time, so I can learn how to use that. Just click the download, and I'll try to add that to the bottom of the YouTube video. And back to Lightburn. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a keychain, and what we're going to do is we're going to start out with our text feature in Lightburn. So click on your A. Over here are our drawing objects. I want to click on our font or our text edit, click on the artboard, and I'm going to type in Bolt. Now, I don't really like that font, so up here is my font window, and I can change my font very easily. And I want to go with, and this is going to register any fonts that you have installed on your computer. It does that when it starts up. So if you add one during the day while you're already have Lightburn open, you may have to recycle Lightburn just so it can recognize that you've added fonts. But it does load off of your system. Okay, so I'm going to pick Avenger, Heroic. All right, and I like that one. Now, if I click on my arrow, now I can edit and modify this as far as the sizing. And let's make it about, I don't know, 2.5 inches or so. And I can also go up to here and type it in, 2.5. Having this locked will keep my constraints and my sizing. And that looks good. Now, we want to make a keychain, and I'm not going to be able to do that with just the bolt here, so we need to do an outline. If I select the bolt or the text, and then I come over here to this Varsity Style O, click on that. This is an offset, a graphical offset. And you can see that it has bumped out a offset line, and I have outer shapes only because I just want it to be mimicked on the outside of my text. And I can change the distance. You can go inward, outward, or both. And then you can also bevel your corners, make sharp corners. I like them rounded. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And I'm going to click OK. All right, so we have the makings of a keychain. Let me zoom in a little bit. And zooming in, just make sure your mouse or your pointer is over where you're trying to scroll to. If I put my pointer over the corner of the bolt over here, it's going that way. If I put it on this way, over here, that's the direction it's going to go. We need a keychain eyelet so that we can put the ring around it. So what I want to do is grab a circle, I'm going to make a larger circle, and then I'll use my offset tool again, and I can do an inward offset, and we can change the sizing of it, and there we go. Now we have a ring that we can use to weld, or use our boolean tools, which are these 4 over here, and I can show you a quick trick on how these work as well. But what we want to do is we want to move both of these objects, and a pretty interesting feature in Lightburn and some other graphical programs. If I go from left to right, I have a red box. If I go from right to left, I have a green box, and they work differently. If I wanted to select just that inside circle, even though my red box is going over the outside circle, this red box is only going to grab complete graphics that are inside of that box. Whereas if I use my green box, I don't even have to encompass it inside, I just have to touch it. It's grabbing both. So really cool feature, especially if you need to grab internal graphics only. It's very, very helpful. So when you weld these objects together, we are making sure that we have an overlap. And we have plenty of overlap of that outside line and the offset of the bolt. What I'm going to do is select both of these. Now, typically, when you're welding objects together, you're going to use, or cutting objects, modifying objects with other objects, you're using these boolean tools over here. Now, the really confusing part when you just start out building graphics is how do they work? Lightburn has included an assistant. So if we go down to Tools, Boolean Assistant, we can actually see what these things do and what our outcome would be if we're using these tools. And we just want a union. We want it to group together so that we can make a keychain. Okay, so I'm going to use the union of A and B. And now we have our outline or our cutout shape all set up. But if we look at our layers, let me go in here, let me get rid of this one. We don't need a multi at the moment. We have everything set up to fill, which is not what we want to do. We want the text filled, we want the outline cut out, and we want this hole cut out so that we can put a ring for a keychain through it. And of course, I'm doing the bolt. You guys can do whatever you'd like. Type your name, type your kids' names, type your partner's name, whichever. So select both of these. We need to make this a different job. And to do that, I'm going to select a different color. I'm going to go with blue. If you notice, we're using different colors for different jobs, and there's 29 different colors on the palette up above. Now, I typically will use the same colors for the same type of process all the time. So if I'm cutting, I'm typically always using blue. If I'm engraving, I'm always using black. And if I'm scoring, just drawing a line real quick, then I will use red. And I do want to add a score line because I want you to go through this entire process to see these 3 different steps that are mostly used. So I'm going to do another offset. I'm going to click on my bolt again, go to my offset. I'm going to go on an outward, and I want it just a little bit larger. Right there is fine. I'm going to select that offset I just made by clicking on it. I'm going to turn it red. Now, as we can see, we have 3 different processes. We have a blue process, a red process, and a black process. And the way that this typically goes when you're building a graphic and deciding on how you want the workflow to be at the laser, we want it to go in a particular order. We don't want to cut things out first and have it drop and shift and move. So we want to engrave first, and we can see here that our color layer, the black one that's going to be engraving, is first. Unfortunately, the blue one, which is going to cut it out, is second. I want to score first or second in the line order of these three processes. So I'm going to select it, move it up one process, and now I'm good. Now pay no attention to the labeling of these. You can label these whatever you want, or you can keep them the standard labels that come with Lightburn. That's not a huge deal, not a deal breaker. It doesn't. It just represents whatever you've labeled them as. Now we have our fill, and if you're taking notes, writing stuff down, this is a good part where I'm going to explain the ranges of your cut, the ranges of your scoring, and the ranges of your engraving. There are ranges where these things are applicable. Now, with a cut, you're typically going to be somewhere between 60 millimeters per second all the way down to 0.1 millimeter per second, depending on the thickness of the material. And usually about 30 to 100% power, depending on the thickness of the stuff. With a line, like the red line here, which is just a score, me personally, I'm always between 80 and 150 millimeters per second at a very low percentage of power. I'm trying to go fast enough to score the material, but not cut through. So it's a balance. It's a sliding scale, if you'd relate it to that. So right here, I want to cut through the material, and if you double click on these layers, we get a secondary window where we can choose our air assist and we can change our settings. And we don't need to go into any of the advanced stuff. We are just building this, this keychain real quick. My score line, you can see I have it set to 150 millimeters per second. I don't need air assist. This is going to happen so fast. Air assist isn't needed to clean away an engraving or to help push through the material. So air assist can stay off. And I'm only at 10% power. Maybe on a score line I'd go up to about 15, but that's really it. It's going to look good. I'm not going to penetrate through the material, and I'm going pretty quick there. Now for my fill. This is something you're going to want to watch the video on material test. This way you can see what your preference is. There is no right answer for engraving on different materials. This is a preference. How dark do you want it? How deep do you want the engraving to be on that material? A good start point for engraving on anything is going to be usually between 200, 300, all the way up to 1,000 millimeters. For this job, I'm going to do 400 millimeters per second at, let's say, 30% power. I'm going to match these, 30% power. And a good quality engraving typically will be about 300 lines per inch, and that is having each one of these passes where the machine is going from, if you look over here, this green dot is going from right to left, moving up a space, then going from left to right, and so on and so forth. It's just going back and forth, up, up, up. These lines are how we fill the graphic, and basically the size of the beam needs to touch so it fills it completely. 300 is a perfect engraving where it is completely filling that area. 300 lines per inch. We're cramming 300 itty-bitty lines made by the laser in an inch space. Okay. So at this point, I have my speeds, my powers, everything is set up, and I want to select this using my selection box. Either way, right or left, doesn't matter. I do have cut selected graphics, use selected origin. I do want to start in the top left-hand corner. So my start position on the laser will be top left. And to represent how this is going to be laid out on my machine, if I had a piece of wood, I'm going to draw a piece of wood, I'm going to set it as a tool layer. This tool layer represents my piece of wood. You can see this green dot. No matter where I place this piece of wood on my machine, it doesn't matter where it goes, all I have to do is move my laser head to that top left-hand corner of the material, hit the origin button, and then that's where it's going to start. And it's going to start there until I tell it otherwise. So maybe I have a project that I want to start there today, and then tomorrow I have another project I want to start down in the bottom left-hand corner. I would have to move my laser head and reset a new origin. But today we're going to start in the top left-hand corner. Very easy to be accurate, very easy to be consistent. I also, and I'll show you once we get to the laser, I also use that red dot laser head to run across the top of my material to make sure my material is not crooked, that my project is staying on my material. Okay, I'm selecting my bolt keychain, and I want to go up to the preview button, which is up here, the little computer screen, and I want to make sure that I have set everything correctly. So once I click on it, I can see my estimated time. I can see I have a circle, my outline, my score, and what I could do is I can hit play and I can scrub through this. And I can see how it's going to engrave, and the way that it reacts on the machine should be identical. Now I can see also that once it's done engraving, it skips over and it goes and it does my score, and then it does my cutout. And it should happen in that exact order on the machine. Real quick, while we're in here, you also have a start here. So if by chance you wanted to restart something or something happened during the engrave, power went down and it didn't restart perfectly, you can send this job from any start point that you scrubbed to. So let's say we scrub to here, and it's just about to do the score line. We can say start here, and we can send it and start at the machine. Really cool feature to fix things that may have not worked out. Maybe it didn't cut through, you had the wrong settings, and you want to cut it again, but you don't want to run all this other stuff. You can easily just send it at whatever point that it didn't cut through at. Also, we can show the traversal moves, and we were talking about 300 lines per inch. This, you can see exactly the movements of the machine. All these red movements are how the machine is moving around. Its overpass area where it's slowing down, turning around and going the opposite way. How it's moving to start the cut or the score, and then how it's moving again to its cut on the outside. So really cool. You can see everything that needs to be seen, and everything looks like it's going to operate exactly how we want it. Click OK. Currently we are disconnected, so let's fix that real quick and pick back up. Okay, so our machine is ready, as we can see right here. I just didn't have it turned on. So once it's on and connected, and we've picked our machine, our devices, as we set up in a previous video, we can go ahead and send to the laser. You can name it whatever you want. Typically, it will follow whatever the name is of your file. So if you're working on a particular project that you have named already, it will be that. And then we can click OK. File already exists. That just means that I already have a file that's named the same thing. Yes, I want to overwrite it. Sends to the laser, and you will get a confirmation beep from the controller that it was received. Now let's continue this on the machine. Now we've moved over to the machine, and our file was already sent. So we can click on the file button, and we did send over the bolt image. So we can click on bolt. And this is just verifying that we did send the correct file over. Once you have confirmed that the file that we sent over is there, it's also on this first page here, we can put our material in. And if we look at our material, again, it does not matter where this material is on the bed. Preferably not up against the sides, especially if you're doing a fast engraving where the head is moving back and forth. There is an extended space where the machine needs to move. So I typically come off of the edge a little bit, and I'm going to move my laser head right down there. And a lot of people complain that it's very, very difficult. I'm going to turn the lights down a little bit. So a lot of people say that it's very difficult to move the laser head into position. Well, the material moves too. And now we have it on that corner. And remember that our origin is the top left, right where our green dot was when we started this in Lightburn. So when I said it has to mimic or correlate with, this is what we mean. We want that red dot to correlate with the green dot in Lightburn. Now to set it there and make it start from there, we have to hit the origin button. So go to origin, and just that beep is enough confirmation to say that it is set up and ready to go in that origin. I'm going to set you over here, and now this is how I make sure that my material is true. If I run this laser head across the top of my wood, I can see that it fell off here. So I can make small adjustments to this to make sure that it does go to the right spot. And that, you know, my engraving is not going to fall off the edge of the machine. Okay, and now I'm going to hit the frame button to make sure that my origin is set and also that I'm covering all of the material. Hitting the frame is going to, there you go. I'm going to hit frame again, and I'm just making sure that this box or this rectangle that it's outlining is on my material and about the same size as the one that I sent over from Lightburn. Perfect. My next job to do here is to autofocus to make sure that I am in focus on my material. And again, we can see that our red dot is over the material. I'm going to hit the autofocus button. It's going to ask me to confirm because it is going to move the head a little bit over so that plunger does go on to where the red dot is pointed. So I'm going to click OK. Moves over. And then back into position. At this point, we can close the lid and click the play pause button. Now we do have a start delay built in, so it's going to take a second, 5 to be exact, and then it's going to start engraving. And you can hear the fan kind of kick on. Now keep in mind, we don't have it set for the air to turn on until our cut layer, which is our last layer. So we have engraving. This is the order that we sent it in. We sent it engraving, and then scoring, and then finally the cut. And you can hear that the air compressor kicked on because we do have it set for the cut to receive high air pressure. Our time was 1 minute and 30 seconds. So at this point, if you wanted to, you can always move the laser head to the back corner. And check out our new keychain. All right, that's it. We were successful. At least I was on this side. Hopefully you were too. But very straightforward, easy to do. And we're going to continue to make some of these learning projects so that all you got to do is follow along with the learning series, and you should be able to use your rotary and the camera and stuff like that. So let's go on to the next video and continue to learn.